Igniting, inspiring, and evoking the fire within.
So when I say give you nothing, I mean like empty all of that blocked energy and blocked trauma and emotional trauma that you store in your physical body, in your emotional body, in your thought body, all of it.
If you look at us as beings, right, we're relational beings. Everything in your life is a relationship to something. You have a relationship to money, you have a relationship to God, you have a relationship to yourself, you have a relationship to the greater society. It's all based in relationships. You want to learn a lot about human beings, learn about relationships.
Right now people are like, well, we can live on Mars. Do you know what Mars is like? Like, watch a drone roam around Mars online, you'll be like, I'm done. Like, I got it. Red. Like, cool.
You are unbelievable. You're pulling out older podcasts. Renee Brown was back episode 14 with Lauren Knapp. Wow. Yes. I promised that I did not speak to Elon before.
Balance comes in a moment where your body senses something that just a moment before it did not. And for the rest of your life, you now have this knowledge, but that knowledge is like living in the subconscious, which is really your body and the connection to the mind, not as like a frame of reference. I can't tell a child, oh God, I got this thing called balance. And if you just pedal your feet like this and you hold the handlebar like that, like suddenly you have balance. You got to get on the freaking bicycle, right? You got to have the experience.
We focus on all this negativity all the time. And we're constantly, it should be that, it should be this, it should be that. If you could just remove the should word from your life, you would be a much happier human being. It's perfect. Always perfect. And when you get that, you can respond to things differently because you're not in an argument with. You're like, oh, this is just here for my perfect experience. Thank you, moment. And then you move on.
You're listening to the What's Your Inspiration podcast with Fox Beyer.
On episode 27 of the What's Your Inspiration podcast, we have Mitchell Levy. Mitchell Levy is the AHA guy at AHAthat, a people publisher who empowers thought leaders to share their wisdom. He's an accomplished entrepreneur who has created 20 businesses in Silicon Valley, including 4 publishing companies that have published over 800 books. Mitchell is a TEDx speaker, an international best-selling author with 58 business books. He has provided strategic consulting to over 100 companies and advised over 500 CEOs on business issues, and been chairman of the board of a NASDAQ-listed company. This should be fun. Here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 27 of the What's Your Inspiration podcast. As stated before, we have entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, big-time businessman, and I can call him a friend, Mitchell Levy. Mitchell, how are you today?
Let's see, exactly today. I'm knock on wood. I'm pretty good most days. I'm doing really well. Thank you. Good to be here, Fox. Nice to catch up with you.
Yes, it is nice to catch up. Just to tell the listeners and the viewers, Mitchell and I met last month at TEDx Hickory and just struck a friendship. And again, thank you for your time being on today.
My pleasure.
Okay. We're going to get right into this as the CEO architect of AHAthat. In a recent interview, you defined an expert as someone who has expertise in a particular area which they have gained through practical experiences. My question to you is, what were some of the experiences that led you to become a thought leader, the CEO and architect of AHAthat?
What a great question. A hidden question. I thought I was going one direction and it veered this other direction. I think one of the things that we often don't do in life is we don't spend enough time paying attention to the gifts that are given to us every day. And there are many times that if you really focus, somebody's handing you a gift, and if you don't see it, you're just going to let it slide. And I hand out gifts all day long to so many different people, and 90% don't even see them, and that's really okay, right? And those that do, those are the people that I hang out with. Those are the people I interact with because they're like, oh, I get it. I got an aha moment. It makes sense to me. That wasn't always that way for me. And so when I first got out of college and B school, I made the big mistake. It didn't last more than a year. I made the big mistake of making myself indispensable. I thought, how cool would it be if I work for a company and I'm indispensable? Now, I'm going to date me a little bit. This is when we carried pagers.
Okay.
So what that meant, right? Here's the down. What that meant is I carried a pager on the weekend. So on the weekends and at nights, my pager could go off. And guess who was responsible for answering? Me. Guess who couldn't go away for a long vacation? Me. Guess who decided it didn't make sense to be indispensable? Me.
Right.
So that was a lesson learned. I think if I look through the different morphs in life, Silicon Valley, I have to throw in a couple. So I morphed from one career, one transition to another, and every step along the way, hopefully I made a lot of mistakes. Some I corrected, some I had to correct in my next opportunity. And where I sit now, so to summarize all of that up until to answer your question, I'm at a place where I have figured out not just how to leverage me, one of the mistakes I learned in the past, but how to put a platform together that other people could leverage themselves with this platform. And that's the piece that I'm super excited about, is that you don't need to have Mitchell Levy to do what the AHAthat platform does. So it was built with that architecture in mind. We now have a 3-step simple writing process. Before you even do that, we have 700,000 users and 42,000 quotes. The platform is free to use, free to share. It wasn't that way originally, but that's the right way to do it, because then more people come. So you want to share good content? Go to AHAthat.com. You want to figure out how you can write? Go to AHAthat.com/author, and there you'll see a 3-step process. Okay. If you decide that you want more, and what's relevant for you, Fox, which I mentioned before, is for students and teachers, we have a scholarship if you're publishing an AHA book. An AHA book's a social media enabled ebook. So guess what's interesting? I love 2-for-1 opportunities. So you write your AHA book, guess what? And you write it in 8 hours. We've had 300 authors write it in 8 hours or less. You write your AHA book, you're also creating quarters, if not a year, of social media content. So I'm tricking you to write your own social media content that your audience is going to appreciate. That's actually not a bad thing, and I say that half-heartedly. And then where it gets really interesting for those people who need physical books, we take that AHA book, and it costs more for this, but we turn it into PDFs, we turn it into Kindle, we turn it into paperback, we turn it into hardcover. So if something like that is relevant for you, if your business requires you to hand out a book or to be able to have something that you could show, there's nothing more powerful than a hardcover book. And here's the cool part. We print color on the inside, but I'll tell you so I'll show you the color piece. So we print color on the inside, but here's the cooler part. It is simple. It's 1 or 2 or AHA messages per page. So now you've got one of these that, Fox, you mentioned about me that you liked on my TED Talk, is I had many different messages, but one that kept getting repeated.
Yes.
Well, that's an AHA message, right? That's a AHA message in a forthcoming book that's coming out. And so what happens is, if you write 140 of these, you're going to figure out which ones resonate with which audience that you want to reach, and they'll be your messages that you share.
Right. You can sort of tailor it to a certain audience with all of your messages. And I people, just before the interview, Mitchell and I catching up, highly recommend a 3-step process. For a guy who does not like stairs, I like that idea of it. So I like it a lot. Awesome start. Wanted to get more into you and use of social media, because for me, I mean, I love the use of it, and it's just to stay connected and be a part of today's world. But I find myself just living on these materials, and I don't want my world to be right in front of my face. So just some numbers here. As of this year, 2017, daily social media usage of global internet users amounted to 135 minutes a day. That's up from 126 the previous year. But off of your website, thinkaha.com, you offer a 5-step mini course that help visitors get their social media lives under control. Could you give listeners who are interested a bit more about what this course entails?
So so courses are funny because they range from everything that you could take a series of courses and spend $100,000 or a couple $100,000 and get a PhD. That would be a course.
Yes.
Or that particular course is 30 minutes of videos broken into, I think, 6 segments. But let me summarize it for you. So I'm a big fan. Let me give you everything you have. If you could do it yourself, then just take what I share and make it happen. If you need step-by-step instructions, then you go and you can pay for the course. And I can't remember, it was like $97 or $49.95. But anyhow, that's irrelevant. Here's the course. And here's the question. How do you do social media in 5 minutes a day? So whether or not you do 5 minutes a day or you do 60 minutes or 135 minutes a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the right number is, here's how you need to proportion your time. So let me talk about it as of 5 minutes, but it applies for however many minutes you actually do spend. So wake up in the morning and spend 20% of your time, 1 minute of 5 minutes, spend 1 minute sharing content. Right? So you don't know what to share, go to AHAthat.com. We have 42,000 pieces of content. Once you figure out what books you like, what authors you like, share 2-3 pieces of content in that 1 minute. Now, where do you share it? Share it on the platform that your prospects are or your customers are hanging out at. So, if everyone in your world uses Instagram, you don't need to play heavily on LinkedIn or Twitter, play on Instagram. So
Right.
pick the platform you want. So spend 1 minute, 20% of your time just posting content. Maybe just sharing a little bit of information on that too. Sometimes when I post, I'll add my 2 cents. Then go away. Come back in the afternoon or a couple of hours later. Spend 4 minutes of your time, 80% of your time touching the people who touch your content. Okay, so here's what's important about that. If you're one of those people who physically has an office and people come into your office and they bring you coffee or they bring you paperwork, do you ignore them? And Fox, no, you would say, hey, thanks for the coffee or thanks for the paperwork.
Right.
So why on social media, when people like our stuff, love our stuff, forward our stuff, share our stuff, do we ignore them? It's not good business practices. So when you're doing social media, what you should be thinking about is you should be first sharing other people's content. 80% of the content you share should be somebody else's.
Okay.
And more importantly, when the content you share resonates with somebody on the other side and they take an action, thank them some way or another or recognize that they took an action. Does that make sense?
Yes. This is an education, people. Not only are you getting an education, but I am as well. And I'm taking notes because guess what I'm going to do shortly? Take your advice. So this is a free course for me and free for you all. This is Mitchell Levy on episode 27 of the What's Your Inspiration podcast. It's great advice for me because as much as I enjoy social media and it gets me connected, I feel like there are times when I become a slave to it. And there needs to be a way that we can exercise moderation, but still get the same great experience out of it. So thank you for driving us in that direction.
Oh, you're welcome.
You got it. You got it. It is time for, I'll call it a famous game for listeners of the podcast. It's called What, Which, and Where. So Mitchell, you answered some fresh questions leading up to the podcast, and I have reflected on those, and I'm going to read you a powerful quote or message, and I want you to tell me and the listeners and watchers where it came from.
I'll see if I get lucky enough.
Okay, here we go. This is defined as someone who has a large following, but not a robust set of content, as the content is focused on a single product line or company. What do you call that person?
I call that person an evangelist.
An evangelist. So do you want to just speak to that for a minute?
Oh, sure. So I've never seen anyone do this before. So for those that really want to understand what a thought leader is and what an expert is and how all that fits, go to the website thinkaha.com. That's my consulting website. I wear multiple hats. I'm publisher. We have a social media enabled ebook platform. I have a speaking website. You either go to mitchellevy.com or the ahaguy.com. But if you go to thinkaha.com, there's a tab for thought leadership. You'll see videos. You'll see more robust definitions that I'm going to give you right now. But largely what you're going to look at there is a 2x2. And all marketers have some sort of 2x2. So this definition of a 2x2 is audience by content. And so what you're alluding to is if you have no audience and no content, you're unknown. If you have a really large audience but a very narrow content set, you're an evangelist. Now, in the old days, so 10 years ago and beyond and before that, that was a big go-to-market strategy for businesses. So let's hire evangelists who talk about my product and my product only. And they just say, buy. This is great. This is awesome. Do this, right? And the thing is, in today's world, given our desire to actually want to know, like, and trust those that we're dealing with, somebody who is purely being an evangelist is being so narrow on their scope of content is you don't feel like they're being authentic. And if they're not being authentic, you don't trust them. If you don't trust them, you don't want to do business with them. And so evangelism is not the right way to go. This is one of the reasons I also suggest that 80% of the content you share is somebody else's.
Yes.
You just need to have a more robust view of the world. But that's where it comes from, the 2x2. And it also shows what an expert is and what a recognized expert or a thought leader is.
Gotcha. Okay, you are now 1 for 1 in what, which, and where, and thank you for the explanation. It's much appreciated. The second quote here, it goes like this: "The elevator is closed. You take the stairs. You don't have time to care. It's not about ifs or buts. Fall down twice, 3 times, stand up." Where does that come from?
That's a good question. Does that come from your TED Talk?
I mean, I've got to give it to you on that one. It essentially does. It wasn't specifically, but that does come off out of my book of poetry, letter kindling. It comes down. The name of the poem is "It comes down to the character of the man." So
sounds like you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I very much appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. Just from talking to you, I thought that would be a good one to come to.
Well, it's a nice thought, and I'll just summarize super quickly. Many times in life, you're given a present. Sometimes that present is you get introduced to the perfect person for you, and you don't know what that is, or maybe you know exactly who that is. Well, if you meet that perfect person and you have your 7 seconds, are you going to say, "Hey, the weather is great here"? Or are you dressed appropriately? Which gets you nowhere, right? Or are you going to be ready to give that aha message just enough to stand out, where they will say, if they're completely out of time, they will say, "Give me your number," or "Here's my card, get in touch with so-and-so who will set up time." Or if they have a little time, they're going to say, "Tell me more." So be ready anytime, any place for that opportunity where you get to share. And it's more than one thing. I mean, there's more than one thing that defines you, Fox. There's more than one thing that defines me. So I have many of those at the queue ready to go.
You certainly do. You certainly do. And I appreciate the compliments very much. All right. You are 2 for 2. In
Just luck.
This does not happen often. Possible 3 for 3 for Mitchell Levy here. I'll start number 3 this way. Let's get away. So in your mind, get away, okay? And here's the quote: "You can't jump on a jet plane like you can a freight train. So I'll best be on my way in the morning rain."
I don't know where that one's from.
Shall I read it again?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to help, but I even go ahead, read it again.
Because in your answers to my previous questions to you, you wrote me something on what you do to get away.
Well, I could take that route, but you led me this. Read it again, so I got it. So thanks for the hint.
Sure. You can't jump on a jet plane like you can a freight train. So I'll best be on my way in the morning rain.
Yeah, so where I was thinking you were headed based on my previous answers, and this may or may not be what you're looking for, is I'm a big fan of making sure that you live your life today and that you enjoy who you are and what you do. And sometimes actually living your life today allows you to experience more, versus less. And so my family and I take 4 to 5 weeks holiday every year. We typically go to some European location. And
you want to adopt me?
What's that? Yeah. Fox, I'd love to have you come join us. We'll be in Edinburgh this year, although I think we're out of bed. This happens to be a year that, so we rent a place for a month and then we have friends and family come visit.
Okay.
And we have many years where there's an extra bed. I don't think there's one this year.
2019.
Okay, gotcha. And so what's interesting is I'm in Silicon Valley. It's so easy to work 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day. And so when my son was one, I went to my wife and I said, honey, I think I'm going to give you a present. I'm going to take every Sunday off. And I'll spend it with my son, and we now call that Daddy Duncan Day. And now that he's 19, I don't get that. He's off at college. I don't really get that. So the interesting part was my wife did not miss a beat. She looked me in the eyes and she said, "What about me?" And I'm thinking, and she was right, by the way, that present was a present to my son and myself, not to her. And so that's when I said to her, listen, if you book it, right? Because my expertise in time is not about the minutia of how to book the travel, where do we go, how do we make sure it all works. So I said, if you book it, I'll go. And so what happens is 11 months of the year, I am, clients, customers, new business, all that's first. And then 1 month a year, what really happens is I switch. Family and friends are first. That doesn't mean I don't work. I've set up my team so they still do work for me when I'm not around. And they have the reach out to Mitchell if it's really urgent and somebody needs me. Now, all that said and done, and this is where I thought it tied into your session. Even though I don't technically do business development when I'm actually on vacation, the amount of money that I've been able to close based on the time I was out has paid for all 17 years times 3.
Okay.
So sometimes when you take a vacation from what you do day to day, it opens up opportunities to even do it in a more expanded way.
Gotcha. Sort of like a residual effect from all that you do. Awesome. I mean, that's we got a bonus there, people. What did we bargain for? I was just within the question, reflecting on some of the things that you would do to get away in your mind. And you wrote to me that when you want to get away from all the hustle and bustle, you go back to the 1960s and 70s and to that music. And that quote is actually Gordon Lightfoot.
Ah, gotcha.
Are you a fan?
Now that you say it, I remember the song, but it wasn't trigger. There's a synapse that was that disappeared somewhere in the years.
I like that. The word synapse. I love that word. I've been trying to use that in a podcast. First time here, episode 27. I love it. Synapse.
There's a synapse misfire. There we go. How about that?
Misfire on episode 27. This is beautiful. Well, anywho, you were 2 out of 3. What, which, and where, Mitchell. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For that game. To just wrap up here, we know all heroes don't wear a cape. Through your content, your speaking, and your advice, you have impacted tons of people, one of them being me. Is there a particular person that inspired you to get where you are today, and what do you want to say to them?
Ooh, there are many there are many people who have inspired me in different ways. If there was a single person I will give attribution to. So if I was going to have lunch or dinner with somebody, it'd be Mark Cuban. I sat on a panel with him in 1986, long time ago, and met him back then, and that was pretty cool. And I do that today. But if I'm going to pick one person, I'm going to pick Mom. I mean, we grew up poor, and we didn't know that hot dog night every Tuesday or sloppy Joe night every Wednesday meant that we didn't have money to buy anything else. As kids, we just thought, hey, that's pretty cool. We get to eat what we want. And Mom always left the impression that you could do whatever you want. You just put your mind to it.
Yes.
And so that's probably, if I'm going to pick one person, there's so many people along the way that has given so many great pieces of advice and thoughts and ideas, but that's an overarching one.
Got you. So yeah, Mom planted that seed within you that's stayed within you and has allowed you to grow to the who you are today. Outstanding. I mean, getting to the core of it here on What's Your Inspiration. Wonderful. And just to wrap up here, two things. First, plug yourself, plug some of the events that you might be speaking at upcoming, plug some of your content. And finally, who would you like to hear and see on an upcoming podcast?
So I would say for me, if you like what you're hearing, what you're seeing today, you could always connect to me on social media. My name's Mitchell Levy. It's probably in the show notes, but it's Mitchell, last name Levy. Connect that on Google, and I'll be in 5 of the top 10 slots. So connect to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Snap, or Instagram, and feel free to do that. What would get the most passion out of me is go to AHAthat.com/author. That's where we have our 3-step authoring process. And let's say you start the process. So, step 1 is a Word document you fill out. So fill out the Word document. Step 2 is a single-page PDF with best practices on how to write an AHA message, i.e. best practices on how to write social media. So download that. That's a free single-page PDF that you'll learn from. And step 3 is where you put your AHA content in. It's a spreadsheet that contains 140 AHA messages when you're done. So let's say you start doing this and you just have a question. So I would say fill out the Word document and fill out 10 AHA messages. And then send them off to the email address that's on that page. It's on AHAthat.com/author. Send it out to that email address and say, I heard Mitchell Levy on the Fox Beyer show, and he promised me that he would look at my content. And my team will make sure I look at your content. And that, to me, that would be my gift for anyone who wants me to give direct feedback on the stuff they're writing to see whether or not I think it will be relevant for them in life. I'm happy to do that, because my goal is for as many people as possible, not just to use the AHAthat platform for themselves, but to actually have, and my first goal is having 10,000 people who are using the platform to help their clients be more successful. And so that's, I'm happy to add my 2 cents there.
Thank you. Just have it disperse everywhere. Great advice. Is there someone you'd like to hear on an upcoming podcast?
Here's what I'm going to say to you. I was thinking about that. God, there are so many people who are so amazing. And what I'm doing now, Fox, is I'm kind of wrapping things around given that I take these thought leaders and experts, and my 2 cents is I help thought leaders share their genius. So what I might say to you is, yes, I have over 300 authors on AHAthat. So who do you want to talk to?
Right.
And if you say, who do you want to talk to today? It'd be the last 10 books I wrote. I read that we're working on the platform, and they come out like this. And so what might be worthwhile for you, if you're interested, is just take a look at some of our folks and the topics they're writing about. And if you say, hey, Mitchell, I've got to meet Ken Rashawn, we haven't published yet. He's going to be he's written a book on social proof. One that you'll like that's very relevant. Scott Sterling has written a book on significance, a very important topic of how do we define who we are, and do we define it through success or through significance? Scott would say through significance. We published an AHA book by Laura Sokola, and her TED Talk has hit over 4.5 million views, and she wrote a book on how to lead powerfully with your voice. And so any one of those would be interesting, but Kimberly Weefling, if for those, I don't know if you do anything internationally, we're doing a book right now where it's organizational culture, probably not relevant for this audience, but organizational culture, and we're actually doing it in both English and kanji. Wow. So it'd be kind of fun to see that. I just sent to the printer a book called Gutsy Leaders by a woman by the name of Pat Obachowski. By the way, when I did a video this year wrapping up my year, I said at Pat Obachobi, and she's like, "Who is this Obachobi person?" And so when we actually published her book, in my mind, I thought I'm going to create a 1-minute video where all I do is say Obachowski. Like, I'll see how many times I could say Obachowski in a minute, and that'll be my video. And so I would say that was a long way of saying, listen, keep an eye on what we're doing. And if there are people there that resonate with you, let me know and I'll introduce them to you, and you could get them on the air.
No, thank you. That's some great advice. Great people on there. I mean, I'll plug your website, thinkaha.com, correct?
So ThinkAha is the consulting website.
Yes.
But and that's if you're going to hire me as a consultant, but it's really the AHAthat.com website where the content is.
It's outstanding. It's got anything anybody would ever need really to become inspired. So thank you so much, Mitchell. This has been an absolute blast. We became friends last month at TEDx, and I sincerely hope this friendship continues for years to come.
I look forward to that, Fox. You're pretty cool. I met you and your sister. I liked her too. She had this really nice, warm vibe to her.
Yeah, she steers me in the right direction. And she has. Well, Mitchell, thank you so much again.
You're absolutely welcome. Thanks for having me, Fox. Have a great day. Have a great year, everybody.
Thank you. And that will wrap up episode 27 of the What's Your Inspiration podcast. Mitchell and I will talk with you all later. Take good care.
Take care. Bye.
You have been listening to the What's Your Inspiration podcast with Fox Beyer, because impact on each other is the greatest currency you could ever have.
The road, rusty hitch, just been towed. Keys barely fit into the ignition. Passenger seat, 2-inch incision. Never passed state inspection, but worth any man's affection. Gears that grind, plates that read my mind. Mighty Max on the highway you've never been, but we have miles of backyard memories. Mighty Max. Tailgate out, looking ahead and reminiscing. You might cost a bus ticket, you're worth $1 million to me. Mighty Max on the highway you've never been, but we have miles of backyard memories. Mighty Max. Rusty hitch just been towed. Keys barely fit into the ignition. Passenger seat 2-inch incision. Never passed state inspection, but worth any man's affection. Gears that grind, plates that read, mine, mine, mine.